Constitution of India. Ability Enhancement Compulsory Courses, AECC. 3 SEM BCom, BBA and IV SEM BA/B.SC, BCA, BHM, BSW and other courses. Course title, Constitution of India. Total contact hours, 24. Course credits, 2. No of teaching hours, week, 2. Formative assessment marks, 20. Duration of ESA, exam, 1 hours. Summative assessment marks, 30 plus 20 equals 50. Course objective. The purpose of the course is to familiarize the students with the key elements of Indian Constitution. The course has been designed to cover the journey of the India from its emergence as a republic. This will enable the students to understand various political institutions that are operationalized under the Indian Constitution. Learning outcomes. After completing this course, students will be able to understand the philosophy of the Constitution and its structure, measure the powers and functions of various offices under the Constitution, appreciate the role of Constitution in a democracy. Contents of course: 24 hours, 8 hours. Unit I. Chapter 1, Making of Indian Constitution, Constituent Assembly Composition, Objectives, Preamble and Salient. Features of the Indian Constitution. Chapter 2, Fundamental Rights, Fundamental Duties, Directive Principles. Unit 2. Chapter 3, Union Government President, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. 8 hours. Chapter 4, State Government Governor, Chief Minister and Council of Ministers. Unit 3. Chapter 5, Judiciary, Supreme Court and High Court, Composition, Powers and Functions and Judicial Review. 8 hours. Chapter 6, Electoral Process, Election Commission Composition, Powers and Functions, Electoral Reforms. Unit 1. Chapter 1, Making of Indian Constitution. Composition of Indian Constitution. Jurisdiction: India. Ratified -26 November 1949, 73 years ago. Date effective the 26th of January 1950, 72 years ago. Contain 395 articles in 22 parts, 12 schedules and 94 amendments. System: Federal Parliamentary Constitutional Republic. Branches: 3, Executive, Legislature and Judiciary, Chambers. 2, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Right pointing arrow: Executive, Prime Minister-led cabinet responsible to the lower house of the Parliament. Judiciary: Supreme Court, High Courts and District Courts, last amended the 10th of August 2021, 105th. Location: Parliament House, New Delhi, India. Authors: B.R. Ambedkar, Chairman of the Drafting Committee. B.N. Rao, Constitutional Advisor to the Constituent Assembly. Right pointing arrow: Surendra Nath Mukherjee, Chief Draftsman of the Constituent Assembly. 2. Signatories: 284 members of the Constituent Assembly. Supersedes: Government of India Act 1935, Indian Independence Act 1947. History: Indian Constitution. The 6th of December 1946. Formation of the Constitution Assembly, in accordance with French. Practice: the 9th of December 1946, the first meeting was held in the Constitution Hall, now the Central Hall of Parliament House. The 11th of December 1946, the Assembly appointed Rajendra Prasad as its president, H.C. Mukherjee as its vice chairman, and B.N. Rao as constitutional legal advisor. The 13th of December 1946, an objective resolution was presented by Jawaharlal Nehru, laying down the underlying principles of the Constitution. This later became the preamble of the Constitution. The 22nd of January 1947, objective resolution unanimously adopted. The 22nd of July 1947, national flag adopted. The 15th of August 1947, achieved independence. India split into the Dominion of India and the Dominion of Pakistan. The 29th of August 1947, drafting committee appointed with B.R. Ambedkar as its chairman. The other 6 members of committee were Munshi Muhammad Sadullah, Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, N. Gopalaswamy Iyer, Khaitan and Mitter. The 16th of July 1948, along with Harendra Kumar Mukherjee, V.T. Krishnamachari was also elected as second Vice President of Constituent Assembly. The 26th of November 1949, the Constitution of India was passed and adopted by the Assembly. The 24th of January 1950, last meeting of Constituent Assembly. The Constitution was signed and accepted, with 395 articles, 8 schedules, and 22 parts. The 26th of January 1950, the Constitution came into force. The process took 2 years, 11 months and days at a total expenditure of 6.4 million to finish. G.V. Mavlankar was the first Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the lower house of Parliament, after India turned into a republic. Objectives of Constitution. Recognize the significance of the Constitution as the fundamental law of the land. Describe the composition of the Constituent Assembly and the role of the drafting committee. And the objectives of the Constituent Assembly. Describe the preamble to the Constitution and its relevance. Identify the basic principles of preamble and their reflection in the constitutional provisions. Identify the main features of the Constitution of India. Checkmark distinguish between a written and an unwritten, as well as a rigid and a flexible constitution. Analyze the nature of the Indian Constitution. Establish the importance of fundamental rights, fundamental duties and directive principles of state policy, and recognize the special features that distinguish the Indian Constitution from other constitutions of the world. Salient features of Indian Constitution. 1. Lengthiest written constitution. Constitutions are classified into written, like the American Constitution, or unwritten, like the British Constitution. The Constitution of India has the distinction of being the lengthiest and detailed constitutional document the world has so far produced. In other words, the Constitution of India is the lengthiest of all the written constitutions of the world. Black circle. It is a very comprehensive, elaborate and detailed document. The factors that contributed to the elephantine size of the Indian Constitution are: black circle geographical factors, that is, the vastness of the country and its diversity. Black circle historical factors, for instance, the influence of the Government of India Act of 1935, which was bulky. Black circle single constitution for both the center and the states. Black circle the dominance of legal luminaries in the Constituent Assembly. The Constitution of India contains not only the fundamental principles of governance but also Detailed administrative provisions. Black circle. Both justiciable and non-justiciable rights are included in the Constitution. 2. Drawn from various sources. The Constitution of India has borrowed most of its provisions from the constitutions of various other countries as well as from the Government of India Act of 1935. About 250 provisions of the 1935 Act have been included in the Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar proudly acclaimed that the Constitution of India has been framed after ransacking all the known constitutions of the world. 18. The structural part of the Constitution is, to a large extent, derived from the Government of India Act of 1935. The philosophical part of the Constitution, fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy, derive their inspiration from the American and Irish constitutions respectively. The political part of the Constitution, the principle of cabinet government and the relations between the executive and the legislature, have been largely drawn from the British Constitution. 3. Blend of rigidity and flexibility. Constitutions are classified into rigid and flexible. Black circle. A rigid constitution is one that requires a special procedure for its amendment, as for example, the American Constitution. Black circle. A flexible constitution is one that can be amended in the same manner as the ordinary laws are made, as for example, the British Constitution. The Indian Constitution is a unique example of the combination of rigidity and flexibility. A constitution may be called rigid or flexible on the basis of its amending procedure. The Indian Constitution provides for 3 types of amendments ranging from simple to most difficult procedures depending on the constitutional amendment process in India. Important amendments in Indian Constitution. 4. Federal system with unitary bias. The Constitution of India establishes a federal system of government. Black circle. It contains all the usual features of a federation, such as 2 governments, division of powers. Written Constitution. The supremacy of the Constitution, the rigidity of the Constitution. Independent judiciary and bicameralism. However, the Indian Constitution also contains a large number of unitary or non-federal features, such as a strong center, single constitution, appointment of state governor by the center, all India services, integrated judiciary, and so on. Moreover, the term federation has nowhere been used in the Constitution. Article 1 describes India as a union of states, which implies 2 things. Indian federation is not the result of an agreement by the states. No state has the right to secede from the federation. 5. Parliamentary form of government. The Constitution of India has opted for the British parliamentary system of government rather than the American presidential system of government. The parliamentary system is based on the principle of cooperation and coordination between the legislative and executive organs, while the presidential system is based on the doctrine of separation of powers between the 2 organs. The parliamentary system is also known as the Westminster model of government, responsible government and cabinet government. The Constitution establishes the parliamentary system not only at the center but also in states. In a parliamentary system, the role of the Prime Minister has become so significant and therefore it is called a prime ministerial government. 6. Synthesis of parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. Black circle. The doctrine of the sovereignty of Parliament is associated with the British Parliament, while the principle of judicial supremacy with that of the American Supreme Court. Black circle. Just as the Indian parliamentary system differs from the British system, the scope of judicial review power of the Supreme Court in India is narrower than that of what exists in the U.S. This is because the American Constitution provides for due process of law against that of procedure established by law, contained in the Indian Constitution, Article 21. Therefore, the framers of the Indian Constitution have preferred a proper synthesis between the British principle of parliamentary sovereignty and the American principle of judicial supremacy. Black circle. The Supreme Court can declare the parliamentary laws as unconstitutional through its power of judicial review. The Parliament can amend the major portion of the Constitution through its constituent power. 7. Rule of law. According to this axiom, people are ruled by law but not by men, that is, the basic truism that no man is infallible. The axiom is vital to a democracy. More important is the meaning that law is the sovereign in democracy. The chief ingredient of law is custom, which is nothing but the habitual practices and beliefs of common people over a long number of years. In the final analysis, rule of law means the sovereignty of the common man's collective wisdom. Apart from this crucial meaning, rule of law means a few more things like black circle. There is no room for arbitrariness. Each individual enjoys some fundamental rights, and black circle. The highest judiciary is the final authority in maintaining the sanctity of the law of the land. 8. Integrated and independent judiciary. India has a single integrated judicial system. Also, the Indian Constitution establishes independent judiciary by enabling the Indian judiciary to be free from the influence of the executive and the legislature. Black circle. The Supreme Court stands as the apex court of the judicial system. Below the Supreme Court are the high courts at the state level. Under a high court, there is a hierarchy of subordinate courts, that is, district courts and the other lower courts. The Supreme Court is a federal court, the highest court of appeal, the guarantor of the fundamental rights of the citizens and the guardian of the Constitution. Hence, the Constitution has made various provisions to ensure its independence. 9. Fundamental rights. Black circle. Part 3 of the Indian Constitution guarantees 6 fundamental rights to all citizens. Fundamental rights are one of the important features of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution contains the basic principle that every individual is entitled to enjoy certain rights as a human being, and the enjoyment of such rights does not depend upon the will of any majority or minority. No majority has the right to abrogate such rights. The fundamental rights are meant for promoting the idea of political democracy. Black circle. They operate as limitations on the tyranny of the executive and arbitrary laws of the legislature. They are justiciable in nature, that is, enforceable by the courts for their violation. 10. Directive principles of state policy. Black circle. According to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the directive principles of state policy is a novel feature of the Indian Constitution. Black circle. They are enumerated in Part 4 of the Constitution. The directive principles were included in our Constitution in order to provide social and economic justice to our people. Black circle. Directive principles aim at establishing a welfare state in India where there will be no concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. 11. Fundamental duties. Black Circle. The original Constitution did not provide for the fundamental duties of the citizens. Black Circle fundamental duties were added to our Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 on the recommendation of the Swaran Singh Committee. It lays down a list of 10 fundamental duties for all citizens of India. Black Circle. Later, the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 added one more fundamental duty. While the rights are given as guarantees to the people, the duties are obligations that every citizen is expected to perform. 12. Indian secularism. Black Circle. The Constitution of India stands for a secular state. Black Circle. Hence, it does not uphold any particular religion as the official religion of the Indian state. The distinguishing features of a secular democracy contemplated by the Constitution of India. Black Circle. The state will not identify itself with or be controlled by any religion. While the state guarantees to everyone the right to profess whatever religion one chooses to follow, which includes also the right to be an antagonist or an atheist, it will not accord preferential treatment to any of them. Black Circle. No discrimination will be shown by the state against any person on account of his religion or faith. And 13. Universal adult franchise. Black Circle. Indian democracy functions on the basis of one person, one vote. Every citizen of India who is 18 years of age or above is entitled to vote in the elections irrespective of caste, sex, race, religion or status. The Indian Constitution establishes political equality in India through the method of universal adult franchise. 14. Single citizenship. In a federal state usually, the citizens enjoy double citizenship as is the case in the USA. Black Circle. In India, there is only single citizenship. Black Circle. It means that every Indian is a citizen of India, irrespective of the place of his, her residence or place of birth. Black Circle. She is not a citizen of the constituent state like Jharkhand, Uttaranchal or Chhattisgarh to which she may belong but remains a citizen. All the citizens of India can secure employment anywhere in the country and enjoy all the rights equally in all the parts of India. Black Circle. The Constitution makers deliberately opted for single citizenship to eliminate regionalism and other disintegrating tendencies. 15. Independent bodies. The Indian Constitution not only provides for the legislative, executive and judicial organs of the government, central and state, but also establishes certain independent bodies. They are envisaged by the Constitution as the bulwarks of the democratic system of government in India. Black Circle. The candidates can read about some of the independent bodies in detail from the links below. 16. Emergency provisions. Black Circle. The Constitution makers also foresaw that there could be situations when the government could not be run as in ordinary times. To cope with such situations, the Constitution elaborates on emergency provisions. Black Circle. There are 3 types of emergency. Emergency caused by war, external aggression or armed rebellion, Article 352. Emergency arising out of the failure of constitutional machinery in states, Article 356 and 365. Financial emergency, Article 360. 17. Three-tier government. Originally, the Indian Constitution provided for a dual polity and contained provisions with regard to the organization and powers of the center and the states. Black Circle later, the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts, 1992, have added a third tier of government, that is, local government, which is not found in any other constitution of the world. Black Circle. The 73rd Amendment Act of 1992 gave constitutional recognition to the panchayats, rural local governments, by adding a new Part 9 and a new Schedule 11 to the Constitution. Similarly, the 74th Amendment Act of 1992 gave constitutional recognition to the municipalities, urban local government, by adding a new Part 9A and a new Schedule 12 to the Constitution. 18. Cooperative societies. The 97th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2011 gave a constitutional status and protection of cooperative societies. In this context, it made the following three changes in the Constitution. It made the right to form cooperative societies a fundamental right, Article 19. It included a new directive principles of state policy on the promotion of cooperative societies. Article 43b. It added a new Part 9b in the Constitution which is entitled, The Cooperative Societies. Articles 243, Z-H to 243, Z-T. Preamble of Indian Constitution. The Constitution of India. Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly this 26th day of November, 1949 do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. 1. Subs. By the Constitution, 42nd Amendment, Act, 1976. Sec. Point 2. For Sovereign Democratic Republic, W. E. F. The 1st of March 1977, 2. Subs. By the Constitution, 42nd Amendment, Act, 1976. Sec. Point 2. For Unity of the Nation, W. E. F. The 1st of March 1977.